Hey, this is Manfred from the band Elephants and Stars, and this is episode 41 of the Sit Down Podcast.
Hey Diggers, thanks for watching and listening to our episodes. I'm Joel.
I'm Mark.
Please make sure that you like this video, subscribe to our channel, and click the bell to get notified when we have new episodes online.
Find us on your favorite platform like Spotify, Apple, or Google Podcasts. And also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And of course, get your new and used records on our website, funkymooserecords.ca.
Oh, I should have said it was Mark and Joel.
No, that's fine.
They'll never know who we are anyway.
No. That was one of the conversations Joel and I had, because we never say our names except for when we introduce ourselves to whoever's on, but we never record it or put that in the episode. And then it was 2-3 weeks ago, I got a comment from someone. She was like, I know who you are, but so I assumed the other guy is Joel, but you never mentioned who you are. I'm like, maybe we should change that.
Go ahead. I was gonna say, in my defense on that though, that person who made that comment didn't watch the full episode anyway, so technically she doesn't know if we said who we are. She didn't sit through the
She watched the whole thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
not when she made that comment.
Yeah, she watched the one with Chris Henderson.
Okay.
And we didn't mention anything in there.
All right. Anyways, go ahead. You were good.
Oh no, I was just going to say that I thought you guys did, because I just recently came across this podcast, and I avoided podcasts for a really long time, and I'll get into that later. But the last couple I watched the one with Exomerita, Anti-Queens, and then the band that's from Saskatchewan. I can't remember. I'm drawing a blank on their name. They're really good. It was the one where you had the story where you went to his house.
League of Wolves, yeah.
League of Wolves, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was a good episode. And I was going to say, you guys, because I wanted to watch it to sort of get familiar with it, but also I was paying attention because there's nothing worse than going somewhere and not knowing the person's name and having to have that awkward conversation. So I wanted to be well schooled in what we were going to be doing.
Right. Yeah, and it's all cash here.
That makes one of us.
Yeah, we still don't know what the hell we're doing, man. Let's get that clear.
No, but that's kind of the whole vibe, right? Even in the notes, it's not like a strict interview per se. It's just you guys get people on and you sort of talk, and some of the stories that come out are great. Like I said, the one where you told the guy that you were at a party at his house, I thought was hilarious.
Oh man, and I still remember. Okay, well maybe I don't remember the whole night, but little flashes of it, because when he Liat played for the Sheepdogs when the Sheepdogs first started, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now he's with them. And when the Sheepdogs were real big and popular, when they first blew up, that was my go-to story, right? I partied at Liat's house. That was the big thing, right? And then to finally get to sit down with him and tell him that I was there that night was kind of fun and exciting. So yeah.
And all he got in reply was oh yeah, that sounds like me.
Well, and I don't expect anything from him. It's just I'll just kind of to show proof that all those times I was telling that I wasn't lying about it. It just that really happened,
Yeah. It's funny, the stories, how two people will remember them differently because they sort of have different levels of meaning for people. I remember obviously when I was younger, I was a big Change of Heart fan, and I remember I was in Canadian Music Week at the Rivoli, and I had a couple, and Ian Blurton walked in the door, and I would normally never approach strangers. It's just but I was super excited that he was standing there, and so I decided I would just go up to him, and I was probably pretty obnoxious, telling him how great he was, and I was probably not even really respecting his personal space as one should probably normally do. And then I met him years later, and he has no memory of that happening.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he probably met a few people in his.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, we had Tyler Gilbert on. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, he was telling us this story of, I think he was in Salt Lake City, And like this random woman just came up to him like at the venue he was playing at, and she was like, "Oh, that song you wrote is about me," and just like
that girl in the song is me.
Invited him to her vehicle, and he like went with her, and I was just like, holy shit, like you're lucky you didn't get chopped up into pieces. Like
yeah,
it was kind of
the first
crazy.
red flag is if people are telling me I wrote a song about someone I'd never met. That would be the first. That would be the first hint that maybe I'm trying to exit that situation.
Right? Yeah, me too. Me too. And he told me
not
about
going
the
to the
car. I
car.
was like, what?
But Tyler does seem like the guy that would go along with it and afterwards think, oh, that's probably a bad
maybe
idea.
not about man. That guy, there's something about him, but frick, he makes me laugh.
Yeah, he's funny.
I get that. I don't know if you know the show Corner Gas. It was a TV show. It used to be filmed in Saskatchewan here. Like, I get that Corner Gas vibe from Tyler Gilbert, like so much, like that humor and that I'm not saying he's an idiot, just his sense of humor and just straight Canadian, like that kind of.
Yeah. Well, he was wearing a Canada too.
Yeah, they just have that go along vibe. Like life just kind of like they just sort of sail through it and it kind of works out. Whereas like, we might fret about something like you said, like going to a stranger's car. They'd be like, oh no, I just went to their car and everything was fine. Whereas I'd be like yourself, I'm thinking like I'm gonna get kidnapped or there's gonna be like a lawsuit involved.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, he's good shit, that guy.
Yeah.
Shout out to Tyler.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do want to ask you, who manages, I'm assuming it's you, but like the social media accounts, like the Twitter and the Instagram?
So we take turn. Facebook and myself, and so our drummer Chris Chambers also does our Facebook account because I'm a little derelict with that one. I think we both do the Instagram. I actually kind of hired someone to quote unquote grow our Instagram account because it's just like there's just so many things you have to be doing. I can't be dedicating all this time to everything. I do the Twitter one, but I would love nothing more than to not do the Twitter one. I don't know what it is about Twitter that I feel like I annoy myself on there. Like I feel like every time I tweet something and then I read it like the next day, I think, oh, that was so stupid. Like you think you're so clever and you're not. And
oh man, you have to keep going though, man. I get a kick out of them. I really enjoy it. Like today you had some good ones there about Eric Clapton, which I want to get into in a little bit here. Mark's
I got into big trouble, a few times, but the one that I got into trouble for not long ago was and here's the honest to God truth. I put all of about 3 seconds of thought into whatever I tweet out. Like a thought comes in my head, and which is probably the worst way to do it. But I did this thing once, and I made a joke poll, like, you can do like little polls. And I said, oh, who's the worst band of all time? And I think I put like Steely Dan, Radiohead, Queen, and somebody else. And again, I just sort of like rifled off a couple I didn't like. And oh my God, these Queen fans went, I was literally getting blocked. Like people were like blocked. And this one guy wrote me this great long diatribe about how not only are we not the best band of all time, but we're not even bad enough to be the worst band of all time. And we're so bad. And it was just, and then I went to respond because I don't know, I thought it was sort of a funny, like to evoke that much emotion. Or I mean, like people trash bands I like all the time. Okay. But I went to respond to him and it says, you're blocked. I thought, wow, that's a Queen fan.
That is insane.
Wow. I'm a Queen fan, but if you don't like Queen, I couldn't care less. Good for you.
The funny thing for me and Queen is it's not even that I dislike them. It's so, and I might be sort of betraying my generation a little bit here, but when I was growing up, the guys who like Queen were the same guys who like Zeppelin and Rush, and even in some cases like Iron Maiden and like the hard rock jean jacket kind of crowd, and they all like Queen. And to me, that never made any sense because Queen doesn't sound like any of those other bands. They've kind of got this operatic feel, and sometimes they even sound a little like a Broadway show tunes and stuff. And I always I find them more confounding. Like I found it's not like no one should like them. It's the people who do like them shouldn't like them. And I'm very confused by it. But I listen, I know tons of my friends, they love that band, love them. And I mean, so, and again, I was putting zero thought into it, and just I got got a lot of feedback on that one.
That's awesome.
That's kind of cool to hear, though. Like, I don't know. That I find Twitter is all about interaction.
Well, the funny thing is, I find is every now and then I will put some thought into a tweet, and I'll think like, oh my god, this is going to be so clever. This is going to probably go viral. It's so smart. I'll get 0 likes, 0 anything, and then I'll belt something out that it's just some asinine thing I thought of in like 2 seconds, and you know, those are the ones that are like they get 100 likes. Well, not that I would get 100, but you know, a lot for me relatively, which is not.
Yeah. 10 likes and 5 blocks.
Yeah, the blocks were fun. Like anytime someone blocks me, because I find myself like fairly innocuous. You know, it's not like I'm out there spreading hate speech or you know, and taking super controversial stand. I mean, some of my political stuff, you know, the Trump stuff, but I mean, that's pretty common. I mean, and I don't really even engage too much with that. But it's just I always find it really funny when you touch a nerve with someone on something that you gave zero thought about, which I find that's the almost unnerving part of Twitter. Like I remember there's a guy who was talking, he made a comment about something, I don't even remember how the interaction started, but he made a comment about ham radios. And I thought, I found that funny. I don't know why. Like I find like ham radio, like there's what are you still doing with a ham radio? Not the 20s. Like not only do they have regular radios and like we've moved past CB radios and like they have the internet now and you can talk to people all around the world fairly easily as we're proving right now. And oh my God, this guy got so nasty and venomous and he started sending me private messages saying like, you know, you don't know who you're messing with and he was gonna he was gonna dox me. I'm like, dox me? My name's on a website. Like it's out there. I'm pre-doxed. Yeah, it's just every now and then you think like, wow, like you forget that you don't really know who you're talking to out there.
Yeah. Actually, it also happens with record collectors too. Like if somebody says, "Oh, records are stupid," or you know, records are why are you listening to an outdated format or whatever? Some people can get really prickly about that.
Right.
Oh, did you guys see that whole thing on Twitter that was going on between two people talking about tapes? Somebody liked cassettes and somebody didn't, and it got actually like I was watching it kind of over. It went on over a couple of days, and they were really kind of going back and forth. And I thought, like to me, like I'm not a big vinyl guy per se. Like I have some vinyl, like some of my favorite records I kept, but you know, I do like the sort of convenience of like electronic music and carrying them around. But like I get vinyl, like I understand the appeal of it. Like I love, you know, just seeing the thing behind you guys. Like I love the sort of feel and the big cover and you know, pulling it out and the smell and.
Mm-hmm.
But I just remember looking at going like cassettes, really? Like you guys have strong feelings about cassettes? Like cassettes were kind of terrible when they were out. You know, I couldn't believe that someone would have that much passion for something that's, you know, cassettes.
Yeah, but to me, it's like, okay, you don't like cassettes, big deal. So what? Move on.
Yeah,
right.
It's that with. I even with things I sort of feel passionate about, again, whether it's, you know, like a social justice thing or a whatever, a political thing, I'm not going to engage some stranger on the internet. I'm not going to argue with someone I don't know over a computer. It's got to be the most pointless extra there is. Like they're not going to change my mind probably. I'm definitely probably not going to change their mind. So what happens, you just get in this big thing where you keep thinking, well, this is the zinger where they're going to like wave the white flag, and that never happens because that's not how human beings interact. So yeah, I'm with you. If you don't like cassettes, don't listen to them.
Yeah.
If you like them, go buy 1,000. I don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, people get so passionate about it's like following a sports team, right? You say the wrong thing about the wrong sports team, and you're up shit creek with like, you know, you're a hater of the Canadians or whatever it is, right? You know what I mean? It's the same kind of concept, but yeah.
I had a conversation with someone earlier this week, and he's a Lakers fan, and I said, well, I cheered for the Bulls, and he was like, okay, this is the end of the conversation.
And
Yeah, done. It wasn't actually, but it was, you know.
You know what's funny is like I actually I cheer for the Green Bay Packers. They're my favorite team to watch.
Yeah.
And as passionate as I've been watching them over the years, you do kind of hit a realization that cheering for a favorite sports team is kind of unreasonably dumb. Like, even though I do it, like, I recognize that, like, first of all, I'm not from Green Bay. That's number one. Number two, none of the guys on that team are from Green Bay. Number three, when I watch them lose and I used to get upset, I would watch them walk on the field. They're laughing. They don't care. It's a job to them. You know, and meanwhile, you have idiots like me at home, like cursing at their television or whatever. A bunch of guys in a city you're not from lost a game to another city that you're not from, playing guys that aren't from there. And it's just this whole weird thing that you're sort of just cheering for whoever happens to be wearing a green shirt at that time. And it's like, then they leave and you don't like them anymore. You're like, Brett Favre, I hate that guy. You know?
Yeah. I definitely see where you're going with that. Like, so I guess since like Janelle, like since we got together, she moved in and stuff. So it's maybe been like 9 years since I've sat through any kind of full sports game. Like it was hockey night in Canada, Saturday nights, you know, I was very avid on that. And like, I don't watch hockey anymore. I don't watch CFL. And that's kind of really all I would watch, like zero sports nowadays. And you know what? It doesn't affect me at all. I could give two shits who fucking won the basketball game the other night. Like, it does not affect me. You know, that's a lot. I'm not talking about it at the water cooler the next day. Like, I don't care. Do you know what I mean?
No, 100%, because really at the end, like, and you know, the former quote unquote athlete in me would be ashamed to hear me say it, but none of it matters.
Yeah.
Like, the game goes on, somebody wins, somebody, like, who won the World Series 2 years ago? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, right? I have no idea. I'm sure somebody does, but you know, it doesn't affect 99.9% of people.
Yeah. I remember Roberto Alomar and Joe Carter from Toronto Blue Jays, because I had a poster of them in my bedroom. But like, I couldn't tell you who won the series since the Maple Leafs or the Maple Leafs.
Maple Leafs.
See, since the Blue Jays in like '93. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it's the same thing. Like it's almost it's like a healthier way to sort of. I think sports or anything, like, you want to have a healthier way to consume it. Like, if your favorite team loses, and you're actually upset, I don't think that's a healthy way to watch. You know what I mean? I don't think that's or again, like, if you're going to bring it back to that other argument we had about people arguing about vinyl or cassettes like, just like what you like and enjoy it, and, you know, sort of glean what you can from it. And that should be about the extent of it. Like, I'm not.
Yeah, I'm a Formula One fan, and I watch that religiously. In the past 26 years, I maybe missed one season. But I have friends that are also Formula One fans, and one in particular, we cheer for the same guy, for the same driver. And so he's Dutch, he's from Holland, and
the driver or your friend?
Both.
Okay.
So he cheers for the Dutch driver.
Right.
And every time he has a bad race or something bad in news or whatever, he sends me this material and he goes like, "Did you see this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, well, okay." It's like, "Yeah, he had a bad race. So what?"
Yeah, it's kind of.
I'm more of a fan of the sport than one particular driver.
Right.
You know, and that makes it a lot more enjoyable to watch, because if he crashes out, normally I would just, okay, off with the TV. But I mean, I'm a fan of all the drivers.
So you'll watch watch it till the end.
I'll watch the whole thing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I can see that. Like I said, I think with anything, people tend to, it's almost like whatever you like, be it racing, a sport, your sports team, your favorite band, increasingly your political party affiliation, like, it's almost that's what people identify as. It's like, the world is getting more breakfast clubby, where you're like you're only one thing, and it's like if you like this and you can't like that, or that this is more important. And I don't know that that's, well, I definitely don't think that's a good thing. Like I really think people need to have a bit more perspective about all of those things. You know, whether it's that bands and sports and racing should be fun, or that, you know, politics is something that can be discussed as opposed to, you know, shouted at each other in all caps. And you know, when you, especially when people like make up names for each other, like for like the people they hate, and they'll like take some insult and sort of like, you know, like Packers fans call the Vikings the Vikings, which is not just stupid and kind of a little dated and sort of gauche. It's also just dumb. Like, I mean, the people who cheer for the Vikings are basically you in another city. Like, people don't realize how similar. Like, I'm a football fan, but I'm not like that kind of football fan. Like, they're dumb, I'm smart. It's absolutely ridiculous.
It is. Eh?
Yeah, and we have to remember that sports is entertainment, and if it's not entertaining, there's something wrong.
Yeah, and it's like that with anything. Like, you want to have that kind of right amount of passion and perspective, where you want it to be important enough to matter, so you don't feel like you're wasting your time, but also you want to have that perspective of, you know, okay, well, my team lost, or, you know, the new record by my favorite band isn't everything I thought it was. Oh well, you know, we'll move on to another day. And both of those things happened to me this week, because the Packers lost, and then also Teenage Fan Club, who I have grown up loving, put out a new record, and it is not great.
Oh,
It is sadly not great. And
Oh,
they've had some membership changes, and they've been around a while, but yeah, the last couple have not been super duper inspiring.
that's what I had with the new Pearl Jam records. I'm a fan would be an overstatement, but I like their older work, and then this last album, forgot what it's called, but it
Yeah, not
came out, uh, and I yeah, and I was excited about it, and then I listened to it, and I was like, yeah, all right, well, move on, I guess. Want to sell your band's merch, CDs, records, or digital files on your own site? Check out our partners at Shopify. With over 1 million e-commerce sites on their platform, Shopify is the place to be to sell your stuff. They have free and premium themes, an app store to expand on your site. They take care of payments for you, and you can register your domain name all from one dashboard. They have a fantastic support team, and you're supporting a Canadian company. Sign up for our 14-day free trial at fmr.fm/Shopify. That is fmr.fm/Shopify for a free trial.
want to listen to our podcast on the go? Why don't you check out the Pamu Slide earbuds? They're wireless, come with a charging case, and you can change the volume with touch controls, pause, play, and skip songs, and you can talk to Siri or your Google Assistant without touching your phone. They're more affordable than the big brands and are comfortable to wear for extended periods of time, and they sound fantastic. Pick up a pair at fmr.fm/PAMU. That's fmr.fm/PAMU.
A friend of mine sent me a link to a band because I'm so maniacal with finding new music and new bands I can like, and you get that thrill of turning someone else onto a band that you like and they haven't heard. And someone sent me a link to a band a while back, and I listened to them and I was kind of like, I don't know, not for me. And then like 2 days ago, I emailed them. I'm like, oh my God, have you heard of this band? And he's like, that's literally the band I sent you the link of. So I guess I just wasn't in the right mood the first day. But yeah, there's a band from, I think they're from Jersey.
A couple times, has it not?
Joel sends me music all the time. And a lot of the time, I was going to say 90%, but it's a lot of the times he sends it to me when I'm in the middle of something and I see the link pop up and I was like, not right now. Or I do hit play and then it's in the background and then it doesn't impress me much because I'm not really listening. And then the day after he asked me, did you listen to that music? And I'm like, yeah, But then a week later I try it again. And it's like, oh, this is actually pretty good.
It grows on you, eh?
Yeah.
And you've done that to me a couple of times too, where he'll be like, oh, check out, like you did that to me with Weapons.
Yeah.
Right. Mark
Yeah.
sent me some information on Weapons. I had never heard of who they are because I'm stuck in the 90s. Right. And I don't know how long afterwards you had sent me that. I was like, oh shit, did you hear about this group Weapons? It's like, fuck man, like I sent you that like 3 months ago.
Yeah. Scroll back in your messages. There's
go
a
back
picture.
to what we were talking about. So yeah, I totally get it.
Yeah, it's just, I guess, whatever the mood is, or sometimes maybe it's even just the first song you hear. Because the band I was listening to, they're from Jersey. They're called Mercy Union, and they're they're this great kind of like ramshackly punk / Americana / very Gaslight Anthem-y, who again are a band that I love. And I guess maybe the first song somebody sent me was maybe like a slower one or a ballad, and it didn't really connect with me right away. And then I was listening to, I just put their album on, just kind of on a whim. I didn't even remember that they were the band that my friend had sent me. And I was listening to them going, oh my God, these guys sound great. They remind me a lot of the Gaslight Anthem. And then I did a little search, and it's actually the drummer from Gaslight Anthem's new band.
Oh,
so
great. Yeah.
I had no idea. So.
That's sweet how you can like, where it's like, oh, this kind of sounds like so-and-so. And then it turns out that there's another member from that band in there.
It's funny because when would we have Elementals?
3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago,
I think.
30,
episode 39, 38.
38, whatever.
It was 38, but we thought it was 39 or some shit like that. Anyways.
So I have been in touch with Elementals for their record, and they wanted us to sell the record, whatever. And I was like, hey, it would be cool if we can have them on the show. So I sent Joel the information, and he hits play on one of the first songs that shows up in Spotify, and it was their song.
It was like Alien
Fetus
or something like that, and it's like fucking crazy shit, like thrash metal, like.
And he kept asking me,
and I'm just like, all right, like trying to be polite about it. That's not like my style at all. Like at all, I'm not into that.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, okay, like we're gonna have these guys on the show. Like I got nothing in common with them.
And then he was asking me, like, what is he singing? I was like, what are you talking about? This is good stuff. And then, no, but what is he saying? Because I can't understand what he's saying. And I'm like, he's clear as day. What are you talking about? So then when we had him on the show, they were actually talking about that specific song, that there are no lyrics. This is just screaming into a microphone.
Because I brought it up that, like, throughout the day, I obviously like did a deeper dive, and like I was like, oh, okay, well, this makes sense now. So I asked him about it that night. I'm like, all right, man, like I'm gonna be straightforward. Like the first song I listened to ever from you guys was Alien Fetus. They all kind of started chuckling and laughing, and they're like, yeah, the lyrics to that like change every time we play it, and like, it really doesn't make sense. We literally just threw it together. It's like, oh, okay. So we kind of got to the bottom of it.
Do you guys remember the show from the 80s, WKRP?
In Cincinnati, yeah, you bet.
Yeah. So the closing credits are the same way. Like there's no actual words. Basically, the guy who recorded it made sounds that sort of sound like rock lyrics, but there's no actual words being said in it.
No way.
Write that down. I want to check that out.
I'll cut that in a clip.
It's funny because my friends and I, when we were younger, we used to argue about what, I think he's saying this, I think he's saying this, and it's all nonsense, which is pretty funny.
Turned out you were all wrong.
Do you know what you're talking about?
Is that with
like Burt Reynolds and what's her face were in it? What's his wife's name?
Bonnie Anderson was in it.
Bonnie Anderson.
Not Burt Reynolds. Main guy, the Andy Travis. I think his name's Gary Sandy, something like that. Anyway, he was.
But Burt Reynolds was married to Lonnie Anderson at that time, right? Yeah. Okay.
So, I think so.
Or
right around.
I've seen. Is that where? Do they have a Thanksgiving clip where they drop off turkeys from an airplane or whatever? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So if you ever find that when you're listening to the closing credits, it's kind of fun that they just said make it sound like a rock song, and he just says.
Isn't Drew Carey? Is that his name? Drew Carey?
Drew Carey was not on that show. He was on his own shortly after.
Yeah, he had the Drew Carey show. And Presidents of the
Oh.
United States of America did the opening theme song to that one.
Oh,
Oh.
they did that Cleveland Rock song?
Yeah.
I
Yep.
didn't know. That's interesting.
Huh.
And the guy from the Odds does the one from Corner Gas.
Really?
Yeah, Craig. I think it's Craig Northey writes that song, writes and sings it. From Odds or the Odds. I'm not sure. I've never been sure if the is appropriate in their name, but
That's so how I wonder, like, so I'm not a musician at all. And let's say Elephants and Stars get some kind of deal to be the opening song for a TV show, for
Or
example.
is it the Elephants and Stars?
Is it Elephants and Stars or the Elephants?
We don't have a the.
Okay.
We actually can't even agree on if we want the word and a plus sign or an ampersand.
Oh.
Our manager was talking to, she's like, you guys have to come up with like a set thing. And I was like, all right, well, we'll talk about that. And I think I think I mostly ampersand it, but not that that's important. But sorry, back to your question.
Yeah, that made me think of another question. So we'll come back to that. But my original question was like, is it like that? There must be a pretty big royalty check in something like that, right? Especially if the show gets syndicated.
Yeah, you would get huge money for something like that, like especially for Cleveland Rocks, because that's on American network television. So I'll give you an example. When I was in a band called The First Time, we had one of our songs licensed not to be a theme, but to appear in an episode of this. It was a sci-fi show. I think it was called Painkiller Jane. I think it was Canadian, actually. And, so we, obviously licensed it to them, and, it was very small dollars involved. And then when, you get your royalty checks and it's like, because when you get statements, it sort of tells you everywhere it was played and what the audience was and what your money is. And, most of it's like radio stuff. You get 40 cents, 30 cents, and then the Painkiller Jane stuff was the same way. It was like $1.50, $3. Painkiller Jane got picked up for a one run, so like no reruns on NBC in like American network television.
So just like one airing.
Just one airing. Our song was in one episode for like 30 seconds, and the royalty was like, I think it was like $800.
Holy shit.
That was so I can imagine, and I mean, I don't think that they were even doing like Drew Carey like numbers. So I'm sure that Cleveland Rocks or someone told me that the Big Bang Theory that the Bare Naked Ladies did is one of their number one money making songs.
Oh, I bet it is, because Big Bang Theory is a huge show.
Yeah, so there's big money in that stuff.
I've never watched that show.
No, because you can't stand nerds.
Never have I ever. I didn't even know Bare Naked Ladies did this song for them.
Yeah, they wrote an original song for it, which is, in my opinion, kind of a perfect song for that show, because I find both of them incredibly irritating. But I mean, I'm sure they made crazy money for that. And, good for them.
Yeah, freaking rights. Well, we had Earl Pereira on from the Steadies, and he was telling us when he was with Wide Mouth Mason, they have a song in that movie. What was the name of that movie? The Recruit?
The Recruit, yeah. That's
with Al Pacino and Colin Farrell.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and there's actually a bar scene where Wide Mouth Mason is the band playing in the bar. And I think he said he still gets like a royalty check from that movie, like to this day.
A friend of mine's band, I had sort of two funny royalty stories were involving sort of friends of mine. One was my friend Vince's band. He was in a band called Sour Landslide from Toronto, and they had a song appear in the background of a party on the show Party of Five.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I mean, I don't want to tell their business, but I think they got like a few $1,000s for that. Like just for like you could hear it in the background faintly. So like there's network money to be had. There's another friend of mine's band. I won't say the name just because I'm not sure if they want this public, but they had a song, and a major brewery came and said, we want to use it in a commercial. And at the time they were sort of not of that mind. Like, they were making a good money touring and, doing their thing. They said, no, we're not doing that. We're not that kind of band. And so they turned it down. The brewery came back, doubled the offer. They said, no, we're good. The brewery, so basically I can probably say the amounts, right? Because I haven't really said anything. So it started, I think, with 25 grand, went to 50. I think it ended up over 100, and they turned it down. And I was like, wow, that's a lot of money to turn down. Like, much respect. I'm not sure I could have done it. And what my friend said to me is, he goes, after a while, it felt like they didn't even want the song. They just wanted to prove we could be bought. And he goes, at that point, they could have given me $1 million. I would have said no. And
that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, he said that's when the vibe originally started as like they wanted the song, and I guess no one had ever said no to them. And when they kept doubling it, and they kept saying no, he said, yeah, he goes, the vibe changed, and it was just like they were going to get their way. They were going to show that we had a price. And he goes, for me, it just became about showing that I didn't. Of course, in hindsight, I said, would you take that money today? And he said, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
I would have taken the 25 grand.
Yeah, I probably would have been at 50. I think I would have been like, yeah, all right.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of had mixed feelings about it. Like, I get where he's coming from. Like, that's not why you sort of get into making music. But I think if you have a song that you wrote kind of honestly and genuinely, and you put it out because that's sort of your quote unquote art, and someone else comes along and wants to use it for something, I don't really see a big problem with that. Now, if you start writing purposely commercial stuff, like you start writing songs like I Love Chrysler or what have you, that might be a little bit different. But yeah, I don't know if there's a big problem with licensing. I mean, especially with musicians, music has been so devalued with streaming, and
Yeah.
they're not going to make the same money they used to, or I guess I should say. Yeah, I don't think I would begrudge anybody doing that.
Right. Well, and I wonder, like, so with licensing, because I'm not too familiar, like, let's say your friend sold it to that company, right? And they use it in an advertisement. I mean, does that mean that he could never play that on stage anymore?
No,
like, does that company own it?
No. So what that would be they would be buying the publishing rights, which basically they're not doing. Whoever owns the song, whoever writes it, and all bands do it differently, but like some bands share publishing. Sometimes it's just the writer's the sole owner. So if you own the publishing rights of your song and it gets used on the radio or gets used in a movie, you make that money. Now, if company A comes along and says, we want to use that song, what you do is you cut them a licensing deal that they are allowed to use it in this thing. You still own the song, you can still play it. That's it. They just get to use it in this one little way.
Right. And and then that the artist still gets paid for that.
Oh yeah. So and depending on what they use it in, like some artists you can get like an upfront fee, plus then you make your royalties. And I remember we were signed, this is back a couple bands ago. I can't remember if this is soap opera the first time, doesn't really matter. We were signed to an indie label here, and they licensed some of our music without asking us, which is kind of a no-no. I mean, yes, they're the record company and they had some say, but ultimately we're the owners of the material. And they licensed it to, of course, the one time they don't ask, they licensed it to the Playboy Channel for a show called America's Next Great Porn Star. And I thought, yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly what I had in mind writing this stuff. The venue I wanted it in. And the best part was they licensed it. Here's the real business acumen that we were used to. They licensed it for no money. They
What?
just said, yeah, you could use it. And then I thought, okay, well, that's not the best deal I think we could have got. And then the argument back to me was, well, you'll make the royalties when it airs. You'll make airing royalties, so you'll get money there. Which I was like, well, I mean, what's done is done, I guess. I mean, I'm not about to sue those guys. They were, other than that story, they were great to us. Our label was, they treated us so well. But that move was always a little bit of a head scratcher. I
Yeah.
think they probably knew why they didn't ask, because they probably would have got a no on that one.
But you did get, like, once it aired, you did get some money from it, right? Like, you didn't get nothing out of it?
I'm assuming I did. It must have been so small that I don't remember it. Like, when you get the sheets, you immediately your eyes cast for like, oh, were there any big ones there? But so it couldn't have been more than like a regular radio play royalty. So it ended up being not that exciting. It's kind of a funny story now, I guess. So you get something out of it, but I didn't even get to see the episode it aired in. Unlike Painkiller Jane, I at least watched the episode when it was on. And what's funny is in the Painkiller Jane episode, which is I had really mixed feelings about. The song plays when the guy in the show commits suicide. He's literally listening to us as he kills himself.
Oh no!
I'm like, well, it's an important scene.
Was it a sad song?
No, it's actually not. It's a really kind of at the time I went through this phase where I wanted everything to be like faster and louder. And so the last record we did for that group was everything was like 100 miles an hour, like full speed ahead. So yeah, he's driving his car, and I guess I wasn't really paying that close attention, but I guess his life was sort of falling apart, and he cranks the radio on where the song is on. It was a song called Hit the Ground, and he's driving his car, and he drives his car off a cliff and kills himself. Which is sort of, like I said, it's sort of, I don't know, it's just sort of funny that, I don't know, at the time we were music to kill yourself to.
And the name of the song is kind of fitting too. Hit the Ground.
You know what's funny is that never even occurred to me until I was just telling the story right now. That was the first time I realized that they were connected, which is probably why they picked it. And I was just too caught up in it to even make that connection, because I can be sort of a dullard sometimes.
So I was going to ask, when you license that song, do they tell you in what context is going to be used, or is it just we're using it for
they didn't they can't, like, some people are more finicky about that. Like, some artists will say like, okay, well, how are you going to use it? Like, I know if you want to license a Jimi Hendrix song, it can't be in reference to anything where anyone's doing drugs. Like, if anyone's smoking pot, they can't be listening to Jimi Hendrix. Or if anyone's shooting heroin, like, they have rules. Like, we don't. Like, we had no clout. We were this little indie band. They were probably doing us a favor using our song, or maybe doing themselves a favor because it's cheaper. But yeah, I mean, I guess if we wanted to, you can say, well, okay, well, how are you going to use it, or you can't use it. But we didn't really have that kind of leverage. So they were like, oh, this space show wants to use your song. We're like, great, sounds good. Yeah. So I might be a little more inquisitive now, but to be honest, probably not.
Yeah.
I totally forgot what the hell question I was going to ask you earlier, but I got another one.
Okay.
So, like a previous band that you were playing in, if like that music is okay, so you guys are obviously not together anymore. You're with a new band playing, and a TV show wants to use an older song from your old band. Who do they reach out to then?
So,
what control of that?
Yeah, so the legal control would be me, as I'm the sole owner, quote unquote, of the music. Now, they probably would have to find me, and they have to go through our record label, which is now defunct. So I'm not sure how that would work. I mean, the guy who used to run it is still around. But yeah, they probably have trouble finding a contact. But yeah, if they got in touch with the label, he would just put them in touch with me. So this is going to sound kind of weird, but I do have a reason. So a lot of bands, like I know like Kiss is one of them, and there's a few others that they split songwriting publishing 4 ways. Doesn't matter who writes a song, 25, 25, 25, 25. That's the deal. Other bands do it the way we do. I keep 100% ownership, and it's, believe it or not, it's not about the money. When we get royalty checks, I distribute it out. I say like, here's some for you, here's some for you. I do it strictly if any member ever leaves the band. I do not want lawyers involved. I don't want to be sued. Oh, you know what? You guys kicked me out in August, and this song took off in September, and I don't want any of those conversations. If you're in the band, you make the money. If you're not, you don't. And the only other thing too is I didn't want to split it that way, because let's say like then you have a problem with, did you guys hear what happened with the Dead Kennedys when they were suing each other left, right, and center because Jello Biafra wrote the lyrics to one song and he owns half of it, and the other three wrote the music, and Quentin Tarantino wanted to use it in one of his movies. I don't remember which one. And then Levi's wanted to use it in a commercial, and they couldn't get any of it done. They had to sue each other. And I want no part of that. Like, I have a very low threshold for band drama at the best of times. Once people start seeing dollar signs, I'm sure that only gets exponentially worse.
Right.
So I do it that way strictly. So for Elephants and Stars, and again, not that we're making enough money for it to matter, but just in case, we had a member leave just before we went in to do our last recording. And had we had those sort of intricate contracts, that could have made things just grind to a halt until it was all settled. I didn't want any part of that. As it went, they left, and we're like, okay, bye. And
yeah,
fill in somebody else. And it allows you to just sort of keep. So it's a bit about control, but it's also for me just about simplicity. Like, again,
yeah,
I figure if I make $1 million, I'm happy to divvy that up with everyone. And if I make $1,000, I'm happy to divvy that up with everyone. But I don't want other people to control. Like, if we did it, again, in the case of the Dead Kennedys, the one guy kept getting outvoted, and he's like, I wrote this song. How am I not allowed to control where it plays? But the other three all had shares, and they outvoted him, and he tried to take them to court, and it's just, no, thank you.
no.
Yeah.
So speaking of Elephants and Stars, because that's the band you're in,
Mm-hmm.
we haven't talked about the band at all. We mention it every once in a while, but
Yeah,
should we talk about that a little?
sure.
Because I'm kind of interested, how it all started, because you were in a few bands before that, and how did you get to Elephants and Stars? How long has it been going?
I'm gonna put one quick little. Well, you can go ahead. I'm gonna just go grab another drink. I want to hear this. I
brought 4.
I want to make sure I'm buckled in for.
You are ready for the whole night. Oh, nice. You're getting old.
So who is this? The office of the record store there?
Yeah. Well, yeah. The camera is standing on my desk.
So how is I mean, since we're just waiting anyway, like, how has COVID affected like what you guys do out there in terms of shutdowns and your business being affected?
So I was lucky enough that in Saskatchewan, if you run an online store, you don't have to close.
Oh, okay.
In other words, all the record stores that closed around the country, all those customers needed to get their fix and started shopping with us.
Right. Well, that's
which is great for us, but
100%.
it does suck for record store owners.
Yeah, I wondered. It's funny because like record stores out here, like, they just absolutely died.
Yeah.
And then a few years ago, there was like this great renaissance where all these great collector shops were opening up, and guys who used to be in bands. Like there was a band in the 90s from Toronto called Grasshopper, who were like this kind of like noise punk band. And their singer, Derek Madison, he just opened up Grasshopper Records in Toronto, and I think they were doing pretty well. And yeah, I was just always wondering, because when you do have that online component, it does sort of hedge you a little bit against that.
Yeah.
Are the bad with you guys?
Sorry, say again.
Are the numbers for COVID, like, are they bad out like where you guys are?
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
Per capita, I think we're somewhere in the middle. Like you always see that Ontario is terrible because lots of cases, but Ontario also has a lot more people than Saskatchewan. So if you compare the numbers per 1,000 or per 10,000 or whatever it is, then I think it's Manitoba, Alberta, and Saskatchewan are in the top somewhere, and then Ontario is even under us. So we're not doing great, but overall the numbers, if you look at the numbers themselves, we had, what was it, 300 and some cases today?
Yeah. I seriously, I'm not like,
no,
I don't look at the numbers.
I just heard it on the radio, that's why I know.
I'm in my own little bubble.
Yeah,
I'm kind of the same way. Like I barely, because I like the work that I do, I can do it from home, so I basically become like a borderline agoraphobic. Like I just, there's days I go outside to do something, and you sort of look around and you're like, wow, I haven't been outside in 3 days.
Yeah.
So what do you do then if you're?
I just do some IT work. I used to be a web developer, because back when soap opera, and particularly the first time were sort of quote unquote doing well, I couldn't really keep a straight 9 to 5 job, because you would need 2 weeks to go record, or a week to go play shows in the eastern seaboard of the United States, or down in eastern Canada, or what have you. Or we went and mixed our record in Vancouver, and most jobs don't just let you say, oh, okay, well, hey man, gotta go for a little while.
Yeah.
But when you were in those days, as a developer, you could just freelance for people, and you could bring your laptop with you, and you're kind of working wherever you are. Or you could just say, look, I'm not going to be working on this for a couple of days. So it gave me that flexibility. So I kind of do that. It works similar to that now. It's a little more steady now, of course, but yeah, it's so funny. It reminded me of a story, and I'll get to your question in a second, but it reminded me of a story when we were at the beginning of the show, when you said, oh, just announce the beginning of the show and the episode number and all that. So I think it was the First Time record actually ended up doing pretty well on radio in the States. So how it works in the States is you hire these, well, your record company hires like what they call local promoters. So this radio promoter will work your record into like Wisconsin and Illinois, and then maybe you'll hire another guy over here, and they'll do these regions. And then what you do is the radio promoter will go to this second region and go, look, this guy's got the record, it's all over the airplay in Chicago and Wisconsin, you guys got to add it. And so they're kind of like these sales, they're basically selling you to radio stations. Anyway, the long and short of it is we actually got some pretty respectable, for us anyway, like radio airplay in America for, we had 2 singles that were like, at one point we were on like 20 something like mainstream stations in the States, which for us was crazy good, especially because in Canada we were getting 0 airplay. But the funny thing is, so a part of that process is you would have to call the radio stations to do these little interviews with them, like the morning zoo or the afternoon drive or whatever.
Right.
And they would always get you to do the station ID, like, hi, I'm Manfred from the First Time, you're listening, like whatever, Cooter and the Bear on wherever's best rock. Yeah. And the problem was I was working in an office when that was going very strongly, like where I was doing my freelance work, I was in an office doing it for this one particular company. So I would be on the phone with these guys at my desk, like during my day job. And, to them, we're a band that's being played on their radios. Like they think we're like a legit, well, I don't want to say big time band, but like, a known band. And then he'd be
you're sitting by the pool, sipping on a drink with like, girls in bikinis around you, and living the life, right?
Like, so when are you guys going to come down to Jersey? And you'd have to do that whole, we're trying to get down there. Meanwhile, we're no plans to go, no money, no visa, nothing. And I remember I don't have to be quiet because I was at work, and so they say like, all right, just before you go, can you do an ID for us? And I would be at my desk, I'd be going, hi, this is Manfred Simmons the first time, and you're listening to. And the guy's like, we didn't get that. Could you do that a little bit louder? I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. Hi, this is Manfred Simmons. And I would just be like trying to whisper it because I didn't want, like, because you're in these cubicles with people who are right next to you, and you're on the phone going, hey, you're listening to such and such with whatever, and people are looking at you like, what is going on over there? What dream world are you living in that you're on the radio right now?
Just pretending, right?
Yeah.
On the receiver with the cord.
Yeah.
So
Totally. Like you're on one of those like old Nortel phones with like the big black thing.
Yeah.
So just when we were doing the ID, it reminded me of that. It sort of made me laugh. I actually got to do it at full volume.
So did your coworkers not know that you were in a band, or?
No, not really. Like I didn't tell a lot of people because that invites some of the worst conversations you're ever going to have. So like one or two people, like the people who basically like there was like someone kind of adjacent to me and someone's across, like they knew just because like they ultimately would hear. But it's weird when you tell people you're in a band because you get such odd follow-ups. Like first of all, when you're like 24 and you're in a band and you tell people that, people think like, oh, okay, I'm sure you guys are really good. And then as you get older, it almost gets worse. I'm not sure if it gets worse or it gets better. Like almost people like, you're in a band, like that, like still really, like you're 30 or 30 whatever. And so you get that, or you get the two other flip side reactions. You get the instant story of someone else they know in a band who's usually a relative, and they play like in a cover band that plays weddings, and they're like, you know what, my cousin Jonathan's in a band, they play all kinds of covers. And I'm like, well, are things kind of different? You don't want to sound like a jerk. You're kind of like, well, it's kind of apples and oranges, but yeah. Or then you get the people who love music, but it's not like your thing. Like they'll be like, oh, so you like Joe Satriani? And I'll be like, not really. It's not really my gear. And they're like, but you must respect Joe Satriani. And I say, well, I guess. I mean, insofar as I don't outwardly disrespect him. And they're like, but as a guitar player, you have, and then like you can't get out of that conversation. You're just like, fine, he's my favorite. Like, oh, sure.
Yeah.
You're the greatest. But then now you're insulting their taste. And I just find that those conversations seldom go really well. My favorite ones are when people find out and you say, yeah, I'm in a band. And then they're like, oh, cool. And then they drop it and you never hear from them again. That's the best one.
It's the same as being a web developer, because you're talking to one here. Right
okay.
Here. And you tell them what you do, and then they ask you, oh, can you fix my laptop?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Which, by the way, I can't. I have zero like technical hardware skills. Like, I can write code and do all that kind of good stuff. But when it comes, like even when my computer's not working, I'm often at a loss. I have to get like friends of mine to come help me.
So are you telling me to stop asking you to fix my computer?
This was a
I think that was his little jab at me to
backhanded.
Shut me up.
That's enough to all.
Mark's my tech guy.
Well, and I mean, sometimes you know more than like the average bear, but usually, like when it comes to like real problems, I'm not only do I not want to help, it's I can't. It's a combination of can't and won't.
Yeah, I really had to put that like in my spiel where I'm a web designer and no, I don't fix laptops.
Like in your resume or whatever.
Yeah, or whenever somebody walks up to you, hey, what do you do for a living? I'm a web designer, and no, I do not fix laptops. Right. That's kind of the follow up right away to cover that.
Yeah, I always find my favorite conversations are when people ask you for something that they think is like the smallest little minuscule detail of the job, but they're actually asking you to like recreate this technology that doesn't exist, like out of the Matrix or
Recode it.
yeah. They're always like, could you do something where like I could like virtually just move it all with my hands? I'm like, it's a website, man. Like what? No, like, what was that Tom Cruise movie? Not Minority Report, the one where they're like reaching into the screen and moving stuff around. Like people like want that and they think it's like a day's work.
Yeah.
Isn't that Minority Report?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I was doing a website for a construction company once. I was building an intranet they wanted. And I was meeting with the owner who was like a construction guy. And he says, he goes, hey, man, why does this take so long? I'm like, that's how long it takes. Like,
Yep.
I said, why does it take you so long to build a building? Because, it doesn't, you don't just show up and the building's done. It takes time to make. I just remember he was so exasperated that like you'd say like, oh yeah, I could have that in 3 days or 5 days, whatever the turnaround was.
Yeah.
He's always so flustered. They're out of business now.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
no, I get that a lot too. Like with clients, they expect you to just push a button and it's done. Not really.
Just that easy.
Anyway, back to your band.
Yeah. So yeah, I was in bands, since I was in bands in high. It's so funny. I was talking to someone about a band I was in high school not long ago, and I was sort of I one of those. Whatever happened to so and so? And we were like this sort of like gothy punk band. Like I was really into like bands like Lords of the New Church, and they were into Baja. So like everything was like a lot of black clothing and sort of slow, murky music, and turns out the singer, the guy who was like kind of like he was like a couple years older than we were, so he was kind of like the coolest dude in the band, and he's like corporate tax attorney. So, but yeah. So anyway, that was one of my high school bands, and then in college I met Mike, and we formed what would go on to be Soap Opera, and we did a couple records and some shows and some tours and all that kind of good stuff. And then we had a member leave. And this is probably part of what factors into my earlier conversation. We ended up having to change our name to the first time when we had that membership change because, like, they're saying, well, that's not the same band anymore, and whatever. So we changed to the first time, and the music got a little bit faster. And then when the first time finally disbanded, I was kind of pretty burned out because we were going great guns in both those bands. Unfortunately, we never had the success that we would have thought that work ethic would have brought, but that's just kind of the way it goes. So I actually didn't even play in a band for like a few years. And then did Mike? Oh, you know what it was? Is a friend of mine's band were doing a farewell show. And what they were doing was they were asking all the bands they'd ever toured with or played with or were friends with to come up and join them for one song, and you would play one of theirs, and then they would ask to play one of yours. So you go up and do two. And they had this great show, and they asked me to be a part of it, which was a really big thrill because obviously they were my friends, and I was a huge fan of their band. Excuse me. And Mike, our bass player, actually came to watch, which was kind of neat because, nice little show of support. I hadn't played in a while. And so after the night ended and it sort of went pretty well, Mike and I were kind of emailing back and forth, like, what do you think? Like, you want to just start something up just for fun, like just kind of for kicks? And he said, sure, let's do it. So we recruited another friend of ours to come and play drums, and that went pretty well. We were going pretty well. And then the guy who was playing drums, he got on this hot streak about, well, now we got to start doing shows. Let's start booking shows. And I have to be honest, like I like playing live shows to a point, but I'm not one of those guys who's like in love with shows. Like that's not where I get. I know some people get a lot of juice from that, like like for me, there's a bit of an awkwardness to it. You're sort of like standing in front of a room full of strangers, kind of seeking their approval. It's kind of a weird dynamic for me. I don't mind doing it, but I was always kind of like, well, yeah, I don't know that we really need to book a ton of shows. Let's kind of keep it loose. And so he kind of kept going. So I finally said, fine, let's get some shows. And I did, full disclosure here, when I was in soap opera the first time, I didn't book any of the shows. All that stuff was done for me. I didn't know the first thing about booking a show. I wasn't one of those kids who went and took his tape around, like, I didn't know how to do it. So a friend of mine, where I work, I said, hey, like, is there someone I can just pay and they'll like book me some shows? Because like I really don't want to be bothered. First of all, I didn't really want to do it that badly, and second of all, I didn't know the first thing about it. And he kind of put me in touch with this woman who has since gone on to basically be our manager. And so she was going to book some shows for us, but she had this, being a music manager kind of person, had this view is like, well, look, you don't want to just book shows. Why don't you guys put out some music? Why don't you guys, promote it, get an online, distribution thing going. So we did all that and everything was going well. And then I had actually recorded some, I guess you'd call them demos, with Ron Hawkins from Lowest to the Low. Their singer also does some production on his own. So the little 5-song EP was actually recorded with him, mostly in his basement. And so we decided we were going to put that out. And then our manager, Sherry, said, hey, what if I could get you guys to record with Ian Blurton? Which for me is like, 5 stars across. First of all, I was a huge Change of Heart fan, like a massive Change of Heart. I saw them so many times. He's the guy I accosted earlier in the interview when I saw him at the thing. Plus, I'm a fan of his production. I own 3 or 4 records that he has produced, including, I guess, are the Weaker Thans, are they from Saskatchewan or are they from Manitoba? Like, they're the guy from, it's the guy from Propagandy. I know Propagandy's from sort of out west.
That's Manitoba, I think. Yeah, Propagandy, okay. Manitoba.
So he left and formed this band, the Weaker Thans, which I think they've won the Polaris Prize and have had Juno nominations and the whole thing. And Ian Blurton produced them, and I said, oh my God, that'd be, short of sounding overly dramatic, like kind of a little dream come true to actually get to work with them. And he set it up, and he agreed to work with us. And at any time, I'm sure other bands have told you about it, but when you go through a recording process, you go through this thing called pre-production often, where you send your songs to the producer and he listens to them. And then he comes back to you and says, look, this song's too long. You got to cut this, or, this part doesn't really work here. Let's try moving the bridge. Let's try adding this, shortening. And basically what you're doing is you're kind of honing your songs, trying to get them a little sharper, a little crisper. And it's nothing personal. It's like, it's why you're bringing this guy into the room, because, he's got a professional ear and way more experience recording than I'll have in my lifetime. And he started kind of ripping the stuff apart a little bit, not in any kind of derogatory way, just sort of saying like, are you guys married to this part? Like, are you sure that, what do you think of this? I'm not sure that I like it. And the guy in our band at the time did not take to that approach. He's like, who is this person to tell us how to play? And who is this person to, and I said, well, they're the person we're hiring because they're professionals at doing this, mostly. And he said, no, if we're going to work with him, like, he's got to know that he works for us, not the other way around. And I was like, well, kind of doesn't really work that way. When you work with a producer, you're bringing them in for their expertise. And I mean, I've worked with some pretty big name producers, like guys like who have done records that we all own, and they're all the same way. Like, they just want to make the best record they can, and they're going to tell you, look, this, you're being a little indulgent here, or this is sloppy, or that doesn't work. And you kind of trust each other to sort of get through that process and make your record. And so he basically said, look, if we're going to do that, he goes, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to record with them. And Mike and I just kind of looked at each other and like, okay, well, we are. So, so we got, so the timing of it was sort of funny. insofar as we had already agreed to record with Ian, like we had basically done that initial pre-production when this guy left. And so as you know, as fine as I was to say, okay, well, we're going to go ahead without you, you have that realization the next day going, oh, we don't have a drummer now. That's going to pose a problem. So I had never spoken to Ian in person in this project. It had all been done via emails. So I thought, I better call him up and say, like, look, you know, this has happened. We don't have a drummer anymore. Like, and I was so afraid that he was going to be like, look, you know, get it together and don't waste my time, or, you know, don't be so high school, or figure it out. But he was really cool about it. He's like, look, you know, just we'll get you a session drummer. And I said, oh, great. That's perfect. Like, how expensive are they? And he goes, oh, you know, they're not that much, you know. Who do you want? I said, who do I want? Like,
I can choose? What?
and so he said, he goes, you know who would be perfect for your stuff? Glenn Milcham from Blue Rodeo. And I said, oh my God, yeah, that would be more than. So that's actually on the link of stuff that I sent you today. That's all Glenn Milcham playing drums on that.
Oh,
and
sweet.
basically we just sent him a tape. He showed up in one day, did all the takes perfectly. The guy is like the greatest drummer of, you know, he's one of the best drummers in the country for sure. And he was so nice about it, so gracious, and he nailed it. And it's just funny because the guy who ended up taking over on drums, Chris, you know, we always joke around that he's like, you know, I hope you're not expecting that. You know, obviously we're not, but I mean, he's very capable in his own right. And, you know, even when we were bringing out, because all the guitaring on there is me playing it, like I'm doing the leads and the rhythm. And when we had a guitar player come out the last few weeks, I would say, like, don't just ignore what I did. Like, just come up with whatever you want. Like, just have fun with it, make it your own thing. It's not like I'm so married to parts that, you know, you have to do everything I do sort of exactly. There's only like a couple sort of signature riffs that I'd hope that he would keep, but I'm pretty laid back about that kind of stuff. So long story short, this guy quit. We put out the EP that you guys have. We recorded the one with Ian, which I think comes out in early 2021. And yeah, we went from a 3-piece to a 5-piece in the last couple of months, just because we wanted to sort of have that. Because when you're in the studio with guys like Ron or guys like Ian, they're so talented. You can say, you know, it'd be great here, like a Mellotron line or an organ sound or whatever, and they're just this, boom, plunk, and they start playing it, and it's perfect. And you're like, yeah, that. And then you know, when they're done, you're like, well, how are we going to replicate any of this? So we thought we better, you know, add a couple people, because, you know, I'm already at full challenge playing guitar and singing at the same time. I'm not I'm maxed out talent wise.
Yeah.
I like how that's like that story kind of goes full circle, like with Ian as well too. Like you said at the top of the show, how that was the guy who you kind of went and were like fanboying out to,
Totally.
and then here all of a sudden you're working with him.
And yeah, and it's fun because when we first got together in person, my buddy who knows what a fan I am is like, look, just like, don't fanboy in front of him like that. Don't be embarrassing. I'm like, I won't. It's cool. And one of the best parts about working with him is his knowledge of music is encyclopedic. He knows everyone. He's played with like, if there's an artist you can name, he's got a story where he either met with them, booked them, played with them, played on their record, produced them, toured with them, whatever. And it's
that, just like that four steps from Kevin Bacon thing kind of thing.
Yeah, except he's one step from literally almost everybody. And I'm not even kidding. Like, you would just sit there and I would just like pepper him with questions the entire time, to the point where he would literally, because he's kind of not stoic, but he's kind of very he's all business. Like in the studio, he's like, he wants to, and like sometimes I'd be like, oh, what was it like when you did this, that, or the other thing? And he'd be like, could we just get the take, please? Like, could we just do a take? And I'm like, oh, sure, yeah, no, that's cool. I wasn't that interested anyway. But yeah, like Lemmy from Motorhead, and he's open for Kiss, and he toured with the Hip, and he, all of this, just you name it. It's I keep telling him he should write a book, but he says no.
Oh,
I think he finds me mildly annoying. Like, I don't think there's any malice there, but I do think that I work his last nerve when I'm in there, just because I'm so enthusiastic to be there. I'm so like happy to be there, and I think sometimes with him, he's just kind of like, all right, dial it back. Let's get some takes.
that's like you.
Is it? Why being excited to be here all the time
Well, that's
on a Friday night?
But when you talk about YMH and I'm trying to get some work done and you just yap my ears off.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask you if
shit.
if you are familiar with Your Mom's House podcast.
That's Tom Segura one, right?
Oh, yeah, you betcha. Tom Segura and Chris Tippy.
I haven't seen a lot of it. I like his stand-up a fair bit, so I have tried to watch it from time to time. Like I said, I'm only a very recent convert to podcasting as a platform. I resisted it for years because, and this is like the height of just dismissive ignorance, which is I'm guilty of a lot. Like, you go onto Twitter and everyone would be like, listen to my podcast, and you'd be like, everyone has one. And I just got to the point where I was like, no, I'm not listening to anybody's podcast. Like, no, I'm not, none. That was my rule. And then what was the first one I listened? Oh, you know what it was? I when I signed up for Spotify, we were getting played on one. Like, someone said, like, oh, we're going to play you on our podcast or whatever. I said, oh, I guess I'll give that a listen. And when I was in the podcast section trying to find it, you get the recommendations, and there's one. Have you ever heard of the podcast Your Favorite Band Sucks?
No.
You have to listen to it. It is, because I just saw that and I thought, like, well, first of all, that's the greatest name of anything I've ever. So the guy who does it, it's two guys, but the main guy is a guy named Tyler Mahan Coe, and he's the son of the old country singer David Allan Coe, and he's actually known for another podcast, which is a very, very serious podcast called Cocaine and Rhinestones, The History of Country Music, which is, again, I'm not even a country music fan. I'm completely.
I feel like that was a show on Netflix.
They were trying to sell it to Netflix. I don't think it's gone through, but I know they're talking about it. But like, it's like this really detailed, hyper researched, but also very storytelling, account of like these high moments in country music. And it's actually, considering how little I know about country music, I was very interested in it when I listened to it. So he does this kind of funny, irreverent show called Your Favorite Band Sucks. And what they do, it's him and his friend Mark. They basically, every episode, they pick one band and just shit talk them for like half an hour to 45 minutes. But it's not just the usual, like, guys like you and I when we were in high school going, oh, they suck. Like, it's actually, again, painstaking research. And he does these point by point essays why these bands are so horrible. And he's even done bands I love, and they're so funny. Like, he did the Clash, who I love. He did Kiss, but I mean, Kiss is an easy target. Like, they're pretty low hanging fruit. They
I love their shirts.
What's that?
I love their shirts. I'm on their website right now, and they have the Rolling Stones, like the tongue.
Honestly, they did one on Journey that was laugh out loud funny. They did one on Rush that was laugh out loud funny. Like, go on there, find a band that you either hate and you can cheer along with them, or a band that you love. Because like I said, they've done a couple bands I really like, but they're so good at it. It's funny.
Right.
So
can you imagine how much like hate mail they get?
Holy shit! They have 3 episodes for Aerosmith.
Yeah, they just did those. Yeah, the Aerosmith one was actually pretty funny too. But yeah, so that they were kind of my first couple podcasts that I got into, and then I would listen to one called Toronto Mike. And then I found you guys on Twitter.
I think so, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I think there was a thread that somebody mentioned you guys in. I think that's how I found out about you, which is not the first the best way to find out about good stuff is when it's sort of related to something else you like.
Are you saying that we're good?
Yeah, so
Nice.
far. I mean, as long as this is one of those Homer Simpson edits where like you clip all the words together.
Yeah. Well, I'll cut you off a little bit right there before we get too far in, but I need to pre-warn you if you're thinking of looking into YMH, because there's like it's
stupid.
He thinks he hasn't watched it, but the demographic, it's hard to explain the demographic there. Like a way I would explain it is, do you remember that what is it called? 2 Chicks, 1 Cup or whatever? Do you remember that video that went out there? It was like disgusting.
Yes.
Right. So I would describe YMH as that times like 100.
Oh.
But the thing is that, but because it's on like YouTube and stuff, like they obviously can't air that, right? So you're basically watching their reaction to watching that, but they have good guests on there for sure. Like there's celebrities.
His wife's on it, and is Bert Kreischer the other guy on it, or is that a different guy?
That's a different one called 2 Bears, 1 Cave, which is another good one too, for sure. But yeah, so like today I had an interesting day too, because there's this gentleman I'm going to give a shout out to Hen Dog. For sure. I want this guy on the show. But anyway, so he's Canadian. He's just outside of Toronto. And a few months back, he submitted a song to YMH Studios. Now, what this guy does, I think it's cool. It's genius, man. So he's a fan of like some of the same podcasts that I watch. But what he does is he will cut out some audio clips from the episodes. And then he like makes a beat or whatever. And then he dubs the audio from the episode into a song. Like he'll make it into a song, right? Mm-hmm. And today he like completed his trifecta, so congrats to Hen Dog on that, where he wanted to have a song submitted for 3 of his top podcasts and have them aired on there, which they have been, like on YMH, and I think it was like Best Friends or Bad Friends, I don't remember which one that one's called, and the Theo Vaughn one. So he did that today. But anyway, so I reached out to him. I crept into his DMs there, and I was kind of like congratulating him. And like they're bangers. They're freaking hilarious if you know the content that he's taking these videos from, right? Or audio. But anyways, yeah. So there's good music on there too. Like YMH has good guests and like musicians and celebrities and stuff like that too. But that was me just trying to
I follow
shout out.
I do see the links and stuff for it, but I haven't checked it out. I probably should at least give it a shot.
Right.
Here I am wondering how we got to this and how I can avoid this next time.
avoid the YMH talk.
Yeah.
Man, I'm ride or die. Watch YMH. It's freaking hilarious for sure.
It's a weird thing, like when you said creeping into someone's DM. It's a weird thing when you actually have to send someone a direct message now, because there's so much like, not, I guess maybe like a negative connotation to it now, like you're being a creep to a girl or you're like whatever. But like sometimes you do have to like message someone privately, not because it's anything, untoward, but it's maybe something that you want to ask privately or something. But I always have the weird thing, like when I'm going to message someone, I almost have like legal disclaimers at the front. I'm like, dear, if it's a woman, I'm like, dear ma'am, this is not a quote DM. I really need to ask you this question. This is not anything like that. Here's my question, please.
I will not send you a picture of my penis.
Yeah.
I have to be honest. I don't get that game at all.
No.
All of Twitter, 100%, based on my limited research, 100% of women seem to think that's disgusting. So I don't know why guys continue to try to do it. Like, is there one guy out there who's been really successful at it, who's their god of Twitter? Because everyone I know thinks it's absolutely repulsive. And yet it seems to be so rampant still. Like at some point you just want to like take men aside and go, okay, look, that just didn't work out. That approach, you need to find a different approach. The sending genitalia in your first message, not happening. And you'd think after getting rejected I'm assuming every time it would sink in, but no.
Well, I saw this conversation on Twitter about, and somebody explained it as, and not that he was doing it himself, but he was like, it must be like a flasher in the park, you know?
It
Long
kind of
trench
is.
coat. Yeah,
It's like well, it can be. I think some of it is, and I think some of it like I don't think it's all sexual, right? And I say this because I think that's hilarious. That's like like, not that I'm sending dick pics out there or flashing anybody. But what I'm saying is, like, but I'm thinking like 20 years ago when I was in high school, man, that shit made me laugh. Be like, look at that guy's dick or whatever, right?
Right.
It was just like a childish sense of humor thing that would make me laugh. Like, and I'm 20 years older, but I'll be honest, like that shit still makes me laugh. But we're in a different time and a different society, a different world, right?
what's
And
so funny about it though? Like,
also the dynamic's a little different when it's a woman though, right? Like stuff that you could get away with being funny in a sports locker room, whether it's like snapping a towel, some guy, like, listen, some of the guys I played sports with were absolutely vile, disgusting degenerates, and they would like urinate on each other and the whole thing. And again, like to me, I'm like, yeah, it's not my thing, but I can see where maybe there's some juvenile humor there. But I think when it's now you're one-on-one with a girl, that sort of dynamic shifts a little bit, and it can get a little weird because again, much like when we were talking earlier with when the Queen people were blocking me on Twitter and going bananas, or the ham radio guy, they don't really know who they're dealing with. Like, is this a guy being funny, or is it a guy coming onto him, or is this the first message they're getting in what will later become evidence for the police?
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
I think that's the weird. If you want to go the dick pic route, my advice would be probably work up to it. Maybe like, you know, exchange names, some pleasantries.
You're right. Oh, yeah.
And
and
then
not say, "Hi, this is my penis."
yeah, I don't. The whole thing is very,
No.
very strange to me.
It's
Disrespectful too, I think.
well, that like I don't know, man. Social media, like like Twitter, I just started a month ago, whatever, not that long ago, and there's been a few times where I've gotten that sense of like, what is it called? The word like euphoria,
Mhm.
or is that the right word? Like just something. I'll make a comment. I'll tag like Tom Segura in it, and he'll like it.
Yeah,
And then
that's
it's like, holy shit, like Tom Segura just fucking liked my comment, and then I'm all stoked about it, right? For like
yeah.
an hour.
But it's
It's weird.
Tom Segura is probably click, click,
Yeah,
click,
right.
But even still, like I've actually my one sort of saving grace for Twitter is, first of all, I have met some great people, in terms of, like your podcast or Toronto Mike or other bands. There's a lot of great indie bands on there that are kind of fun to talk to. But I've actually had some really cool interactions with sort of like people that I like Chuck D replied to one of my tweets once, and just last week Kathy Valentine from the Go-Go's, because I just finished her book, which is amazing, and I sort of sent out a little tweet about it, and she responded. And those are like fun little things. Like, not that I'm
It feels good, right? Like it's
it's not even that I'm not into celebrity, because really I'm not, because they're just people and all of that kind of good stuff. But there is that little sort of jazz you get out of it. You're like,
right.
neat,
D Snyder from was that Twisted Sister,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, he shared one of my tweets there a week. He put out that Christmas song with the girl from Hailstorm. What is it, Lizzie
Hill.
Hill?
Yep.
They did a Christmas song, and I was like, oh, this is the first Christmas song of 2020 that I listened to, and I retweeted it, and then he liked it and tweeted it, and I was like on cloud nine for about an hour after that. I was like, holy shit, like
An hour.
yeah, man, that like I get so fired up when
I had a cool one with someone did some tweet where they're like, oh, what's the best song to sing a karaoke duet to? And first of all, I've never done karaoke in my life, but I just thought I just kind of was joking around, and I said, oh, Please Don't Touch by Motorhead and Girl School. They did like this crossover single like in the 80s, which is like this kind of, which no one would ever do at karaoke, obviously. And the singer from Girl School retweeted it, and she was like, "Oh my God, thanks for remembering this song." So that was kind of neat.
Yeah, I think I like that stuff.
Yeah.
I like it.
And that's the reason I like Twitter, because you don't have that on Instagram.
But you can like Hen Dog for it. Well, I'm not saying he's like celebrity yet, right? But he's starting to blow up pretty big right now. And like I just DM'd him on Instagram. Like I just reached out. And
but if you do DMs, then it's just you sending him an email or sending him
it's sending him a text, but the fact that he replied, I think is like that interaction, I think is what the difference is. Like it's one thing if I send you a text and you ignore it, like as opposed to you answering it is all the difference, right?
Don't send him a dick pic.
Yeah, now I'm gonna send you dick pics.
Yeah, no, I can sort of see what you're saying with that. Like the other thing I like about Twitter is, and it's similar to YouTube but different. Like, you know how YouTube, you can get on there and you can kind of like get in a rabbit hole where you're like, you want to see this video and they're like, oh my God, I want to see that one now. And then, so Twitter for me has been a great way to find, because I'm an absolute nerd for wanting to find new bands. Like I always want to hear something new. I want to hear something I haven't heard before. And you can kind of fall into these little chains. So like I said before, I was a big Gaslight Anthem fan. And then when Brian Fallon, their singer, he did these shows with the guy from, I'm drawing a blank on the name, doesn't matter. He was doing these acoustic shows. And then one of the guys who was doing the show, Chuck Reagan, he was doing the shows with Chuck Reagan. One of the guys doing the shows with him was this singer named Dave Hawes, who used to be in this punk band called The Only Ones. Sorry, not The Only Ones. Again, doesn't matter. And then, so I found his music. And then on Twitter, he was talking about touring Canada with this guy, Northcote, who is, I think, also from Manitoba, Saskatchewan area. Maybe he was, and so then I found his music. And then I went to go see Northcote in concert when he came to Hamilton, and I bought tickets for him, and this other band happened to be headlining, who I'd never heard of, called the Glorious Sons. And then, they've gone on since to be like, I saw them in Club Absinthe in Hamilton, which holds like, I don't know, like 100 and something people. And a year later, they were playing like the Rogers Center. So, you can sort of like trip into bands that way. And then I think I found the Beaches that way, and then the Dirty Nil, and you just kind of like, these guys know these guys, and these ones are touring with these ones. And, you can just find this sort of like gold mine of bands in any genre that you might like. It's fantastic.
And that's kind of how, because we're booking in January now for guests
on the show,
and a lot of that is because of Twitter. That's how I found you.
Yeah, and
so
your show, like I found, like I'm not from Toronto. Hamilton's close, but like I didn't know who the Anti-Queens were. I listen to them all the time now. You know what I mean? Like it's just a great thing that you just find. And I've actually turned my daughter onto them because she's like super into like girl rock and stuff. So it's been great. So anyone who's sort of like, if you want to find it, like I see all the negative stuff of social media. I see the name calling. I see the harassment of, especially of women, which again, I don't have a lot of time for any of that stuff. But if you want to sort of find the good in it, where you can sort of maybe interact with someone that you wouldn't ordinarily, or find something new, it does have that to it. But the long and short of it is, I would love to get off Twitter, because I almost have like buyer's remorse. Like the next day I'll read like a tweet I wrote, and I'll be like, oh, such a stupid thing to say,
Man, I love some of the stuff you put on there. I'm getting out of it.
No, keep them on.
Hey,
I saw you. Was that today? Some girl, I don't know who, said something like, "Draw me a bath already."
Oh, I found the picture of the drawing of the bath. Yeah. That's something that I put no thought into. I'll look at that tomorrow.
No, that's funny. Leave it.
There's actually a post on the Instagram account too. Wasn't there a cameo thing where somebody was like giving a shout out to Elephants and Stars and then was saying how Trump hates the band? And
Oh, that's Michael Cohen.
yeah,
That's Trump's lawyer. That's the guy who testified against Trump in front of Congress.
so
What?
was that? So tell me
Oh.
the story of this. Is this like one of those cameo things?
It's Cam. So I find Cameo fascinating. Like I love going on there, just seeing who's on there. I don't know why. I just sort of
I
like
do it too, man. I get it. I get it. I
the
do it too.
people I get excited over are not the people you think. Like I'll go through it going like, no, Michael Jackson, no, you know, famous guy. And I'll be like, oh my God, Greg the Hammer Valentine. You know, I'll be like, so. But so I saw Michael Cohen was on there. So for those who don't know, Michael Cohen was Donald Trump's personal attorney. He was his quote unquote fixer. He was the guy in the Stormy Daniels who handled the Stormy Daniels payment. He's also handled some other pretty nefarious stuff. I mean, listen, with all due respect, Michael Cohen himself, no angel. And then he turned on Trump and he wrote the book about him and he testified before Congress about how, all the illegal things Trump was doing. And he ended up going to prison and he just got out. So I guess he's hurting for cash. And I just saw Michael Cohen. I said, I gotta get Michael Cohen. Like, are you kidding me? So I think it was like $150. He was super cheap considering he's easily, in my mind, the most famous person on Twitter. And so I sent him a message. I'm saying like, hey, could you like do like a joke video and just, you know, give a shout out? We just released an EP and say that like Donald Trump always hated us. Because I thought, you know, that's sort of funny because obviously he's never heard of us. But so Michael Cohen actually direct messaged me back, which I didn't even know you could do on Cameo. He was the first guy who's ever done it. He said, look, I don't know what an EP is. Can we start there? And I go, oh, that's what he said. He goes, I don't know what an EP is. I go, well, it's just, I go, don't worry too much about that. It's a record. Like, just say that, like, you know, Trump never liked us. It's like something funny. And he gets back to me and he goes, tell me exactly what you want me to say. And I said, in my mind, I'm like, you're kind of sucking the fun out of this right now. Like, you know.
Yeah, you're like, make it your own, right?
Yeah, that's what I said. I go, you know what? Do whatever you want. There's no wrong answers here. I go, just have fun with it. Like, just all I would ask is mention our name and just joke around and say the. So he did this cameo where he's like, Donald Trump hated these guys. He used to complain about them all the time. And I was like, I'm watching it so gleefully. Like, I'm just thinking this is like the greatest thing I've ever. I was so, when I got it, this is the honest to God truth. When we got it back, I remember looking at it going like, this is going to go viral. This is going to be the biggest thing I've ever done. Like, when I post this on social media, people are going to lose their minds. By the way, nobody cared. No likes, no retweets. People are like,
I saw that today. I was like, what? There wasn't even one like.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is the greatest thing I'll probably ever achieve in my life. I have Trump's attorney talking about my band. And
okay, maybe you should put a text under it or something who it is, because I didn't know who that was.
Yeah, see, again, that's
but
another.
Now it makes a lot more sense now. Now it's more. Yeah.
You got some likes on there now, yeah.
So the other cameo I got Laura Jane Grace from Against Me.
Okay.
The singer for I don't know if you guys are familiar with Against Me, but she's a transgender. She used to, the first few Against Me records was a guy whose name I can't remember. She became a woman. Against Me released an album called Transgender Dysmorphia Blues. She wrote a book called Trainee, all about her, you know, life and everything. And I'm a huge Against Me fan. Like, I love Against Me. And I had just finished her book. And I thought, oh my God, she's on there. Like, I gotta get that. And so I kind of gave her a similar thing. I just said, oh, hey, like, you know, we're all fans of you. Could you just give a shout out to her? I really was just doing it for the other guys in the band because I thought they'd get a thrill out of it because they're like big Against Me fans. And so she ended up doing it. and I was watching it, and I remember reading in the book just how she was struggling with money, and then when COVID came and Against Me couldn't tour anymore, I started feeling bad, like she was doing this because she needed the money, and then now I kind of felt like exploitive, like, you know, we kind of got her where we want her, and she'll do this message for us. So I never actually posted it. I have it still, and I let the other guys in the band see it, but I've never posted it because it felt really exploitive. And
Right.
a lot of people tried to argue with me, like, no, they're on there of their own free will. And I'm like, well, a lot of people do things of their own free will that they don't necessarily want to be doing.
Well, so okay, here's one thing that's beautiful about Twitter and Instagram is why don't you just direct message her and ask her how she really feels about that? And even though she paid and stuff, but say, hey, would you honestly are you okay if I like play this?
You know what? I had thought about doing that. I've kind of kicked that idea around. I mean, I'm sure they get like 8 million direct messages a day. I might do that. I might, because the one that she did was actually really good. It was like a really well done cameo. You know, you got your money's worth and the whole thing. So yeah, I might do that because it's a good one. It'd be a shame that people couldn't see it. I just sort of felt weird about it. I just kind of like not kicking someone when they're down, but just kind of like
rules with, like, I've contemplated using that too for like Funky Moose Records, right? Just even to give even just something to fuck with Mark here a little bit. I've thought about doing it, but I never pulled the trigger on it. Like, I thought there's like some kind of regulation in there where you can't have them publicize. Like,
no, you can do it. So do you guys know the band from, well, they're from Dundas, but people say Hamilton, called the Dirty Nil?
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm actually wearing one of their shirts right now.
Oh.
So they actually, for their first single, because their new album comes out New Year's Eve, and they actually did a whole cameo campaign where they hired David Hasselhoff, and they hired Cisco, and they hired like just a whole bunch of really funny ones, and basically Mark McGrath, and basically they did the deal was you had to listen to the song and give your opinion on it, and that was all their cameos, was just all these celebrities
giving their opinion on the song,
giving their opinion on Doom Boy, and it was all on social media. So yeah, I think the agreement is once you buy, excuse me, you can do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, but I think there are artists that say that they don't do
maybe
commercial. I think that's what it is.
That could be what I'm thinking of. Maybe.
Yeah.
Anyone on Cameo can refuse the cameo. Like if you hire David Hasselhoff and say like, oh, hey man, like give him a shout out to my record store, he has the right to say, you know what, I'm not comfortable with that. I'm not doing it.
Right.
Here's a picture of my dick. Let's see you rate it.
Speaking of which, a bunch of white supremacist guys hired Brett Favre to say a bunch of racist stuff, but they did it all in code, so he didn't really know what he was saying.
No.
They YMH guys have done that to some people too.
Yeah.
And like, so like going back to Hen Dog again, like he'll take some audio and put it in a song, right? Of like these fucking stupid, disgusting clips, right?
Right.
And then so there's inside jokes in YMH, like certain comments, like for example, it'd be like 4 strokes, or that's where it spits, or like you need to be a fan of the show to understand what that means.
I have
right?
no idea what he's talking about most of the time.
But they've done like cameos where they'll get, you know, some celebrity to say like, oh, I'm coming up in May and, you know, let's do it in 4 strokes or whatever, all in reference to YMH, and they don't know what the hell they're saying, which makes it all that much more funny. I think.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. So I guess they had Brett Favre say a bunch of like dog whistly sort of like racist stuff, and he had no idea what he's saying, or maybe he did, who knows. But yeah, so that video made the rounds, which was pretty funny.
Awesome. I'm gonna do that to Mark here, I think.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it could be a fun thing. Like I said, it's a cool. I'm still stunned that the Michael Cohen thing didn't take off. I was so sure of myself. I was like, this is. I can't even overstate how psyched I was when I saw his message. I was like, this.
Like, I get that feeling though, right?
You
it's
should,
like this
million
is cool.
right here.
when Trump finally gets kicked out of the White House, then you should hashtag the shit out of a tweet and that video, and then it might go.
Well, I'm going to hire him again. I think I'm giving up on this. My dream is that Cohen's going to break us. That's it. No, and because again, he's only like $100. There's some people on there who are like $500.
I saw that too. So do you remember Chris D'Elia? Do you know who that is? That comedian?
Oh yeah, he was the guy. He got in trouble for the allegedly getting a little friendly with some younger people.
Yeah, allegedly. So him, when I was big into his podcast too. He actually had my license plates on like his last 5 episodes before he got canceled.
Right.
Because I had his catchphrases on my license plates. So I sent them to him. I thought that was a fun idea, whatever. Right. But his whole thing was he was like the most expensive person on Cameo. He was like, yeah, they reached out to him and they were like, can you, like, do you want to be part of this? He's like, yeah, I'll be part of it, but put me down for like 50 grand. Like, if somebody wants me to do something, put me down for 50,000. And they did. I don't think anybody ever paid that, obviously, but the joke was like their cap was like $500 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm well worth more than that. So that was the whole joke, like to see if he could get Cameo to put him on for 50K, and they did. So, but yeah.
Yeah. I think Caitlyn Jenner's the most expensive person on there.
Really?
I think so. I remember when I was sort of comparing prices, looking around, I that she was a crazy amount of money.
Oh, that's so fun, man. I'm going to pull the trigger on that.
They have a $50 Black Friday sale right now.
On Cameo?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was somebody I wanted because I was looking at that today. There's somebody on there that I thought, oh, for $50 I'll get them, but I don't remember who it was.
I'm slowly going through here.
Who would be on there that you don't want?
Tony Kanaan. Who I don't want?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm going to tell you.
I almost had him.
Yeah, Larkin Poe. I don't want any of those.
I don't know who that is.
That's okay. Larkin Poe. Look up.
So
anyway,
the songs that you sent us today, that when is that released? Like, when's that coming out?
No, it's not. So that's going to be our next record. It's going to be a 6-song EP called Dreamland.
So I wasn't supposed to share that all over?
Oh no, that's fine.
Okay.
Oh no, I was on. It's funny because our manager at the time was like, just don't share it with too many people. And I was like, oh, sure, no problem. And then when I was going on the Toronto Mike show, I sent it to him just like so he would have like a reference, or if he wanted to ask a question about it or whatever. And so I'm sitting there, I'm doing, because you do the show live with him, and I'm sitting there, and he goes, all right, well, I'm going to play one of your songs right now. And he starts playing one of the songs that's like not out yet. He just playing it, and I was like, I wonder what I'm supposed to do here. Like, I didn't want to be like, you're not like,
no.
I just said, fine. I mean, who cares really? So yeah, he ended up playing it, and it was no big deal. So yeah, those are coming out. Well, it keeps getting pushed back. It was originally going to be November, and then now it's January. I'm assuming we'll probably release a single from it in January, would be my guess, because I think how they want to do this one is they want to do a single, and then a month later another single, and then a month later the record come out.
Right.
Like this one, we just kind of said, oh, here, because we didn't think anyone would care. And yeah, so I think they're going to do it a bit more in that way. So I'm not sure where they pick the singles yet, but I think that should be early in the year. And then I would assume the record would be out in hopefully by March would be my guess. We've already got plans to record 2 more records in 2021. So I'm hoping that they can start kind of coming out, bang, bang, bang now.
Right.
We'll see. We're going to do one more with Ron, and we're going to do one more with Ian.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
I would love to do a song. There's a kid I know, like years ago. I used to help coach a football team, and one of the kids that I coached, he's a producer in LA now, and he produced that song. I can't remember the artist. It was a hip hop song. The single was called Ric Flair Drip, which was like, it went 6 times platinum, 6 million. It's not too shabby. Sent the guy a note the other day, and I was like, hey man, and Ric Flair's in the video. So anyway, he produced that, and I was saying to him it would be neat if he for old time's sake, if he ever wanted to do like an old timey rock band.
Oh yeah. Metro Boomin.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I can
Yeah.
never remember.
Oh, and 21 Savage is in there.
Yeah.
Offset, Metro Boomin, and 21 Savage.
Yeah. So he was a producer on that, which is not too bad from a kid from Mississauga.
Yeah.
Like posing on I follow him on Instagram now. He's like posing against his Bentley outside of his beachfront condo.
Nice.
Yeah, he's a good kid too. Nice guy.
Cool.
I have an idea for the and thing for elephants and stars.
Sure.
So why does it have to be the same all the time? Like
I
if
don't
you
think it does.
right? So the idea would be on one album, it can be like the word and then the next album, it could be like the symbol, and then the next album could be a plus sign or whatever. Switch it up all the time.
It's called an ampersand.
Did you guys read the Motley Crue book, The Dirt? Did you either of you read that book?
No, I
watched
watched
the
it on
Netflix.
Netflix though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the movie was good. I enjoyed it, but that's a super sanitized version of what was in the book. The book was just unbelievable levels of debauchery that it's the craziest book I've ever read about a rock. But to your point, there's a running theme where the record company wants Motley Crue to pick a logo and keep it forever. Like say Iron Maiden did. We had or Kiss, we had the instantly recognized logo. And Nikki Sixx fought against it. He's like, no, every record we're gonna have a different logo. And I never even noticed that was the case. But if you look at all the Motley Crue covers, it's always written differently, different colors, different fonts, different things. And that was like a war that went on between him and the record company, because they were like, no, you need a brand. And he's like, no, we don't.
Right. Yeah, they did just fine, I think. Hey.
Yeah, they did all right. But yeah, that book, if you ever want to feel really creepy and dirty after, there's a good one.
I don't need a book for that.
Yeah, the other book that I read that I really liked was there's a biography on the Replacements called Trouble Boys, which is I would highly recommend. It's really good, but in a very different way. It wasn't debauchery. It was just like, if I had to explain it, it would be like four people with different kinds of mental illness being in a band together. Like they're so dysfunctional as people and musicians. Like the stuff that goes on in that book, where they're almost self-sabotaging their career the entire time, and you as a reader, you're almost like screaming in the book, like, stop it. Like they would sometimes like burn money or destroy their own property, like just on a whim. It was nuts. It's a
what? Trouble Boys?
Boys. The author's name is Bob Mehr, Mehr, and it's really, really, really meticulously researched and well written. Because like a lot of times, books that get a little too well written get a little long, and my attention span's not everything it should be for a grown up. Like I get bored of stuff really easily. So that book, I blazed right through it. So it was a good one.
Sweet.
Cool.
I'm trying to think the last time I read a book was quite some time ago. I'll be honest, I think it was The Shack. I think that was the last fucking book I read.
I'm reading one right now.
Oh, yeah.
I just finished one and I just finished the Kathy Valentine book, who's the bass player for the Go-Go's. Very good biography. And I've switched gears. I'm reading the New Jim Crow. I don't want to get down a politics hole here, but it's basically about mass incarceration in the States. And the author's view is that basically it's sort of the Jim Crow laws in the 60s replaced slavery, and now basically they've replaced that with mass incarceration. And it's basically just her talking about that theory and a lot of statistics and a lot of interesting stuff. I mean, it's not a particularly happy book, but it's well written, and yeah, I'm hoping to at least finish it. Take a break from just reading about musicians' debaucheries.
I gotta read more about musicians. I should.
It's funny because like even like I was saying to a friend of mine that it's amazing, like rock documentaries, I'll watch a documentary about any band. I don't even care if I hate the band. Like I'll sit there and say, like, I'll talk nothing but garbage about a band, and then I'll see a documentary on them and be like, yeah, I'll watch that.
Right.
I watched. Uh, I'm on Netflix, and then I go through a bunch of documentaries. There was one that I turned off. Like I'm like you. I've never heard of the band. I'll watch it, or I don't particularly like
Yeah.
the band. I'll watch it. But there's one I started watching and I turned off after about 15, 20 minutes because I couldn't stand the guy, and I still can't.
Who is it?
Neil Young.
I
On
have
Netflix.
I've not seen that documentary.
Yeah.
Is
I don't know if it's still on there, but it was. And 20 minutes, I don't know. I just,
like, so you don't have this, like, I had this thing where me not liking someone is almost as addictive as when I like someone. Like I I I have this weird gear. I enjoy hating stuff as much as I enjoy liking stuff. Like I watched a documentary on the Eagles, and I don't know if you've seen any documentaries on the Eagles, but those dudes are jerks, and they are just fine with it. They own it. And like you just watch it. You watch it and they talk about themselves in such grandiose terms, and and it's almost addictive to me. It's like, I can't believe these people are talking about themselves this way, like how great they are and how much better they are than everyone else. And I was like, geez Louise. But yeah, that's why I love that podcast, Your Favorite Band Sucks, because you can just embrace all your hatred of something.
Right.
instead of listening to the episode of my favorite band, I should just listen to the one of my least favorite band and go from there. Work my way up, kind of thing.
Who is your least favorite band?
Least favorite? I don't know what they have on the list, but
If you could obliterate 3 bands from the planet, who would they be?
Fuck, I'm almost scared to say
holy
it, man.
shit.
Can we bleep it out?
Yeah, you guys could cut it. You guys edit this, right?
Well, yeah.
I'm seriously scared to say it because knowing Mark, he wouldn't bleep it out and then I'd be fucked.
Why is that? Was it someone we had on the show?
No, no,
Okay.
it isn't anyone on the show or coming on the show or any of that. But I'm scared to like rile up that rage up there. I'll be honest. Okay,
Why?
I don't know.
We just talked about this. It doesn't matter.
I know.
You'll get some hate tweets for sure. I mean, if it's anyone of consequence.
Well, Twitter, I'm not too worried about because there's only like 20 people that follow me. So like, I'm relatively new to Twitter, so I'm not too worried about that.
Come on, out with it. Which band?
I think one of my, like, in the top 3 ones that I don't like at all, like Tragically Hip is in there, man. I am not a fan of Tragically Hip at all. Like,
you know what? That's not as uncommon as you'd think. I know a lot of people who don't get it.
See,
like, I don't. Sorry, go ahead.
I understand. Okay, I'm not from Canada, so I didn't grow up with them, but I know people that are songwriters, and their music and their songwriting helped a lot of other songwriters, hone their craft, kind of thing. So I get that, but the music itself, it's on the radio. I'm like,
yeah, that's kind of my take. I'm sort of like, yeah, they're good, but I don't see the fuss. And conversely, I've never understood, and again, I'm not saying I'm a big fan, I've never understood the hate that Nickelback gets. What about them has pushed people's buttons? Like, okay, when you say like a band sucks, but most bands that you've heard of are probably pretty good at whatever it is they do. But like I played with indie bands I played with bands that suck. I mean, like, can't sing, can't write, can't play. Nickelback can do all of those things, and
I will agree.
I
just don't get it. I don't know why.
Again, as an like a foreigner, so to speak. Well, I am a foreigner. But Nickelback around the world is well known and respected, except in Canada. And same with Justin Bieber, same with Celine Dion.
Yeah.
It's
I don't fucking get it, man. Like when we were talking about royalties and stuff in shows, I was thinking of Nickelback. Like they did the theme song for Hockey Night in Canada with Kid Rock for like a season or two, right? And then there's a Transformers movie. They got a song in there too. I've got all their albums. Like I'm a fan of Nickelback, big time. You know I am.
Yeah.
Like fucking, I
and
don't see the shit. I
You-
don't see the shit.
you know what? You probably get more hate for saying that
Yeah, then
than for not liking it.
maybe.
But the thing is, like I said, like I don't actually own any of their records, but they don't evoke that feeling in me. Like I just look at them and I think like, okay, well, like if you like that kind of guitar rock, like that, they're fine. Like they do it as well as any of those other bands. It's almost like it's become like a thing, like their like insert joke about them.
Yeah.
And what I've never been able to understand is what about them made them those guys? Like why? Like I'm sure they don't care. Like I'm sure Chad Kroger is doing just fine, sleeping on piles of money and selling more records than almost anybody. I just, and to be honest, I know a few people who know them. Like I wouldn't call them mutual friends, but like I know some people who have toured with them or played shows. They're supposed to be like the four of the nicest guys like ever. So I'm not sure why it happened that they became this lightning rod for people.
The butt of the joke, right?
I had
why?
a conversation with a hater, and one of the reasons is that this person said it like their music is very simple and it's not very innovative, and then the lyrics like I want a big mansion and I want a bathroom size of a baseball field or whatever the lyrics
The
is.
Rockstar song?
Yeah, that one. That rubs people the wrong way, apparently.
I disagree. I fucking love that song. I love the video too.
I know,
How
but
like
it's
everybody singing it, right?
but it's the words saying that I want $1 million because I earned that or whatever. It's a sense of entitlement that's coming out of the song that rubs people the wrong way. That's
I want
how
$1 million.
that's how I understood it. I mean, I'll take it too. Yeah.
Right. I don't think that guy knows what he's talking about.
If I had
like what I mean, so much popular music is simple and so many lyrics are vapid. Like the conclusion I always draw with Nickelback is like they're kind of this generation's Kiss. They write big rock riff songs. The lyrics are kind of, you know, overtly like Kiss sang about being rock stars and Kiss sang about women, and basically that's kind of Nickelback's deal. And you know, but you know, there's something about those guys that strike a chord on people, and it's lost on me. I don't get it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, like you were gonna say, like that person was saying about the $1 million and singing about it. So why, like, why can Bare Naked Ladies do it? Right? If I had $1 million and
Because-
sing that song, and that's okay.
because they're dreaming about it. If I had $1 million, I'd buy whatever.
Yeah, but that's what the Rockstar song's about too.
Yeah, but
Like I want to be a rock star. If
I
I
don't
was a
know.
rock star, I'd have a private jet. I'd be
Don't
doing
ask
all
me.
this shit. Yeah.
because I don't mind Nickelback at all.
I think there's a bit of I think it's jealousy.
Could be.
Maybe.
There's got to be some of that in there. I mean, like as someone who really enjoys hating a band with the best of them, to me there's way more bands that earn that
Hatred
Oh, yeah.
or dislike, right?
yeah, like and for me, like I really hate pretentious music, like anything that sort of, you know, is really overtly kind of like over the top artistic or avant-garde. Like some of that stuff kind of annoys me. Like when, I mean, I get, yes, music is art, but it's also music. And some of the bands that are sort of a little hoity-toity can kind of like chafe me a little bit. You know what I mean? Like the ones that are sort of credited with being geniuses, or I mean,
Like
listen,
who?
oh,
You must have an example.
I've never understood Radiohead's popularity, quite frankly.
Yeah.
They Their music is very unmelodic to me. The sound of that guy's voice drives me crazy. The voice of the guy in the Smiths drives me crazy. Um, I probably shouldn't say this because they're Canadian, but I can't stand any Arcade Fire songs. They drive me nuts. And but the thing about those bands is they're considered like high art, whereas Nickelback is like a joke. And I always sort of like, I think that's when I started getting defensive of Nickelback, even though I'm not a fan. Like I kind of wanted to defend them because I thought like at least their music you can sing along to it. Like half of this other stuff is tuneless, you know, meandering drivel.
Well, you mentioned Arcade Fire, and that's really a polarizing band because either you hate them or you love them.
Yeah,
There's
I
no
have
in between with them.
friends who love them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not one of them.
What's one of their big songs?
They're well, big. They don't.
Like if I heard them, I can't even think of one of their songs. The name.
You know, I'm trying to blank. I don't even know.
Right?
Oh, they had what was that big song they had? Like the one where they're walking down the street, Rise Up, like that.
No, well, maybe, but the one I have in mind is oh, I have the tune in my head. I had.
See, at least with Nickelback, we can think of a name of a song, right?
Well, I was arguing with someone the other day about whether or not the Go-Go's should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and someone was saying that they shouldn't, that they're kind of like disposable or whatever. And I said, name 2 songs by Radiohead, and he could say, well, Creep. I said, okay, no, I said 2. He couldn't do another one. I'm like, they're in. I think one of the requirements of getting in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, if you're going to have such a stupid thing, I should be able to name more than one of your songs. You know, Go-Go's I can hit you with 10, you know, right off the top. So, and again, that's that whole sort of thing that we're talking about. Like there's that high art and then there's like disposable stuff. Whereas to me, it's all the same. It's all music. It's, you know, whatever, like there's no genre of music that's better than any other genre. There's the stuff I like, and then there's the stuff you guys like, and then there's the stuff that person over here likes. I don't know why certain bands get this pass into sort of they're great artists. They're just writing songs. Like, well,
but I mean the whole Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and stuff. That's become a joke.
Well, it's like an award show.
Yeah.
Right. Like the Junos, for example. Right. We had tickets to that. We were going to go, all of the above. And we were in a couple conversations with each other about, well, who the fuck votes for these songs? Who gets to say that this is the best song of 2020 or 2019 or whatever the hell?
Yeah.
It ain't me.
And then that guy, you probably heard the guy The Weeknd was all bent out of shape that he either wasn't nominated or didn't win.
Yeah.
I thought, like, why would you care? Why would you care about some weird made up award show? Like, presumably The Weeknd sells a lot of music and is doing very, very well. Like,
yep.
Why do you need, like, that should be all the validation you need, not like, because whoever votes for it is probably like record company middle management types, you know what I mean? It's like hardly the vanguard of what's great. I mean, I think I tweeted some smart ass from Mark about, like, if you care about the Grammys, you should probably re-examine why you're making music.
Yeah,
right.
I agree, because I'm not in danger of being nominated or passed over or whatever, but I don't get that. I don't know why anyone would care about that.
Yeah.
I mean, even the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, like, I couldn't care less who's in it. But to me, I love having arguments about who should be in and who shouldn't be in. And when somebody gets in ahead of someone I think is more deserving, I love having that argument. But really, at the end of the day, they could burn the whole building down. I wouldn't lose a minute of sleep.
Yeah. Right.
I don't like Hall of Fame. I don't even like sports Hall of Fames. I don't like the whole notion that, you know, when you're a kid and you're playing sports and you guys have probably all played some form of team sport, and it's like, we're a team, we're all equal, everyone's the same except you're better, you know. It's
well, and then the way it changes too, like, not to shit on it, but kind of, is like the Hockey Hall of Fame, right? That's a pretty big deal, right? In Canada, especially, and all. But look at, like, the first 5 years of hockey compared to what it is today in like points, let's say, if you needed
Yeah.
X amount of goals to hit the Hockey Hall of Fame, like I'm pretty sure a player this season, even with COVID, will like just fucking crush that.
I can
You know what
relate.
I mean?
I can relate this to Formula One again. So Lewis Hamilton is a 7-time world champion now. He last race he had enough points to become world champion, and everybody's calling him the greatest of all time. But is he? Like, the cars right now are V6 hybrid
Yeah.
engines,
Yeah.
and they're stupid fast. If you put Fangio, the first world champion, in a car, he's dead now. But if you were to put him in that car, would he perform the same?
Yeah.
Or if you put Lewis Hamilton in a 1960s Formula One car, would he shit himself? Probably. So,
I think, don't all the Formula One drivers shit themselves because they can't stop to go
No.
for shit? But it's rigged. It's set up so if they have to shit, they can, right? No.
No.
But those races go on for hours though, don't they?
No. Formula One is capped at maximum 2 hours.
Oh, okay. So is it
one of those ones that
2 hours or 300 kilometers, whatever comes first.
what are those ones that like fucking go really long where
Like Le Mans?
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
those are the cars that
they have
if
the
have to shit,
24-hour.
they got
No,
diapers.
they have the 24-hour races, but they have 3 drivers. So when they make a pit stop, they actually switch drivers. So then the second and third driver can go take a leak or sleep.
I'm sure I can find a video of some driver
Oh, I'm sure.
talking
Yeah,
about shitting in the car while he's racing.
yeah, but it may be sick. Anyway. So yeah,
cool, man.
we've spent quite a bit of time.
Long episode. I
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah, me too. But I'm
it
getting
would have been
tired.
even longer if I could tell time. And again, the great irony is I was so convinced I was being conscientious. I was like, I'm going down early. Meanwhile, you guys are like, hey man, are you
Yeah.
guys joining us?
Are you- Yeah.
So I should sorry about that. I have my times all mixed up.
No problem.
No, it's all good, man.
Is there anything you want to plug or promote?
Well, I mean, if someone's lasted this long in the interview, I'd love if they were to go check out any of our stuff on our streaming services. Recoveries REP. It was recorded with Ron Hawkins from Lowest to Low, who is again a huge musical influence of mine. Like when I saw them for the first time when I was in college, I was absolutely just blown away by them. So to get to work with him was a thrill. We had something coming out in January, February that we recorded with Ian Blurton, and just people want to give us a check out. What I would love is if anyone does check us out, if you want to send me a tweet. I'm always curious what bands people think we sound like, because people always tell like, oh, you remind me of this. Like I get DMs on Instagram and on Twitter where they say, oh, you guys remind me of this, and I'll go listen to the band. I'm like, we sound nothing like this. Sometimes the bands are really good. Like somebody turned me on to this band from Australia called We Are Scientists, they were great, but I was listening to them and I was like, we don't sound, this is not we have nothing in common here. So I do always find that interesting, even though I don't know that anyone's ever said one that I agree with. I remember I was, just to sort of cap it off here, and I know I want to be conscious of your time. I actually asked Ian Blurton in the studio once, I said, hey, what kind of music do you think we are? Because, there's so many like power pop and post-punk and this, that, and the other thing. Because I don't really think we sound necessarily like that per se. And he said, well, he goes, you guys have like some power pop to you, but not like the bands now. Like you guys are more like Cheap Trick meets adult contemporary. I remember thinking about it going like, wow, that's close. Because I have a real thing with adult contemporary music. Like I love AM Gold music and like all those like really cheesy like yacht music stuff. So there's definitely going to be like a streak of that in there. So that's been my favorite explanation so far. So I love, if anyone ever wants to send one or hears us and thinks I might like a band, always shoot me a message to I'll go check them out.
Where and then they just find you on Elephant and Stars on Twitter, or
Yeah, you can Twitter, Instagram. We've got a Facebook page that our drummer Chris monitors. I think he might monitor our Instagram as well, but I think we both check that one. Twitter's the one you'll probably get me the fastest, or there might be a contact on our website. I can't remember. But yeah, Twitter's probably just the best way to go about it.
nice.
Cool.
Well, man, there's so much. Like, I'm almost sad to end this episode because there is a few things that I wanted to talk about and we never got to. But
Yeah, I know.
like the videos, for example. Like I watched the videos and I really liked the one for Another Bullet. I enjoyed that video. I think probably my favorite.
We're gonna have to get you on again and talk some more about this.
100%. Man.
Yeah.
Our manager actually made that video herself in her office.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we couldn't afford to do anything. So she's like, "Oh."
You know what? I kind of want to touch on it a little bit. So I'm watching the video, and did you watch the video?
No.
So there's a dog that gets killed in the video. And I'll be honest, when I saw that, I was like, oh, and I was like really into the dog for whatever reason. I was like, fuck, oh, that's too bad that dog died. But then if you watch, spoiler alert, the dog.
Yeah, I felt the same way when I first saw the dog. I was like, I don't want that in there.
Yeah.
And then
I thought it was cool how I was thinking about that. And I was like, oh, I wish that didn't happen. And then like check out the video. It's a good video.
Yeah, I've pitched her on doing an audio commentary for each of the videos as like a companion piece. But no one seems entirely thrilled with that idea, but I'm gonna keep pitching it anyway.
Hey, well, I'm gonna add to that because I'm an avid movie watcher. Okay,
Yeah.
like I've got like thousands of movies, man. And when I purchase one, like I'll watch that shit cover to cover. Like if there's 20 hours of content on that, like I'll watch it all the commentary, like everything.
I love audio commentaries. Like I can't get enough of it, which is why I thought, well, that'd be neat. Not that anyone really cares, but it can also just be like a funny little companion piece where you talk about how we spent no money on this video and that sort of thing.
I think that's a good idea. I think you're onto something there.
That and Michael Cohen, those will be the two things that break us.
Hey, can I blast that Michael Cohen?
Do whatever you want. You can do anything you like.
I think what I'll do is this week too, maybe on one of the clips, I'll put it on there. Nice.
Yeah, for sure. That
Cool.
was great. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Right on.
Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll do this again soon.
Yeah, I'd love to. And anyway, I'm actually becoming a fairly regular watcher now, so I found a couple of bands that I like. So
Perfect.
Nice.
That's why we do it.
I'll be around.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.